In this lesson, we're going to talk about creating shapes and the pen tool. So the first thing I want to mention is this is the last point from the last video. I want to go back in my history. So what you can do is go over on your toolbar on the side here, which is your history, or window history, and you'll have your history that comes up. If you want to move your history window, you can just use those double arrows and move it up or down. And then you can go back and click on them and see each previous state. I'm going to go back quite a bit and then work with this. So again, I have both of them selected. I'm on the move tool and I'm just going to center align everything. I'm going to throw a quick drop shadow just so I can see what's going on. And I'll even just keep it at that for now. Now what we want to do is we want to work with some shapes. If you go over on the sidebar here, you have your shape tool. So these are all vector, which means they'll scale at proper proportion. If you want to make it smaller or larger, it doesn't get pixelated. It's the same thing how Photoshop treats their text. You can actually scale it to any size and it'll still be crisp, unless you rasterize it. But we won't get into that right now. So we have our rectangular tool, our rounded rectangular tool, our ellipse tool, polygon tool, line tool, and custom shape tool. Once you have your ellipse tool selected, you want to make sure that you are on a shape. I'm going to have my color fill as either one of the swatches here, or you can click up to the top to get the full color picker. And I'm just going to go to the corner and make it white for now. Then what I want to do is hold Shift and create a perfect circle, use my move tool, and move it around. I'm just going to put it over top of the eye for now. So that's how to create a circle. If you want to rename your layer, double click and call this circle. I can also collapse so I don't see the drop shadow, or I can also hide the effect of the drop shadow if I just want to turn it off for a second and then turn it back on. Also to note with the ellipse tool, up at the top here I have all my different options. So if I want to put a stroke on it, I can pick one of the swatches, or again I can go into here. So I'm just going to pick a red for now. And it gave me a red border around it. If I want to make it larger, I can increase the size. And then if I want to color pick, again, I just have to have my color picker selected, and then I can go over to any part of my photo and I can color select that way. Now what we want to do is we want to work with a rectangle tool. And what I'm going to do is I prefer to work with the rectangle tool, first I'll state that, versus the line tool. I feel like I have a lot more control with it. The line is pretty thin and it's not as easy to adjust. So what I'm going to do is make a new layer. Call this one square line. I'm going to have a black fill and I'm just going to turn off the stroke for this one. And here's my square line. If I want to duplicate it, I can right click, duplicate layer. Now with my move tool, I can just move it over. And if I hold Shift, it should align it properly. And you can always use your arrow keys as well to just shift things over. Now, the Dream Big is sitting behind this black line, so I have two different options. I can either move the lines below or just move the text above. And then now it is hidden behind. If I want to go in and adjust my drop shadow to make it a little bit more bold, and if this isn't strong enough for me, I can go back to that outer glow, normal, make this dark, or color pick inside, change the opacity up, change the spread, and change the size. And at this point, if you're finding that the black is a little too dominant, you can always change that. And again, the circle has to go on top of the other text. And now I want to show you how you can use the pen tool to create your own custom shapes. I'm going to click on the pen tool. I want to make sure that it's set to a shape, not a path. My color fill, I will select as white. My stroke, I'm going to select as that dark bluey green. And right now it just adjusted this layer because I was on the circle layer. I need to make a new layer. And I'm just going to create a triangle. If I hold shift, it'll give me a perfect line. And then here I have my little triangle. I can use the move tool and move it over. I can duplicate it, rename it, arrow. I can duplicate it, right click, duplicate layer. And if I hold shift, it'll keep it into proper alignment. And then if I want to scale it, Control T brings up that transform box. And I can hold shift and scale it, and it'll scale to proper proportions. If you're happy, hit enter. I can go to the next one. I can also zoom in when I'm doing this. If you wanted to use your zoom tool over here, bring up my transform box. And then I have my 3 arrows. I'm going to duplicate this arrow, bring it to the other side, transform. I'm going to move my cursor on the outside of the box, and when you get those double rounded arrows, that means you can rotate it. And if I hold shift, it'll rotate it on the 90 degree, 180, 360 axis, and then I hit enter. And instead of manually scaling them down this way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it by using a percentage. So here we have our Y, our W, our height, and the angle. So if I go over to here and I say that I'm going to scale it by 80% and hit enter, I can just move that over. And then I'm going to duplicate this one. And I'll do the same thing, transform, Control T. Scale that down. And I like to keep organized. I'm going to create a folder here, and I'm going to call this right arrows, and I'm going to put all of my right arrows inside of this. And I'll create another folder called left arrows. And again, view, fit on screen, and you can see what's going on here. This might not be the ideal look that I would traditionally go for, but it gives you a sense of how to use all of your items. One more thing I want to talk to you about are custom shapes. If you hold this down, you go to the custom shape tool, you will see that up the top menu, there are all the options of the custom shapes that are installed. If I click over to the sidebar, I can pick all, and it will put all of the shapes that Adobe has preset. You can also download shapes from the internet, and then once they're downloaded, you double click them and they should automatically come in the bottom here. They would usually come right in at the bottom. If they don't, then you can always load your shapes and find them from there. But I'm just going to use one of these preset designs. And once I have my item selected, I'm going to create a new layer. And I want this layer to be behind everything. So I just want it as a background image. I can pick on my fill. I'm going to pick that background kind of color. And I don't need a stroke for this. And then I'm just going to create my shape here. If I want, I can scale it and make it really narrow. I can hit enter when I'm happy. I can move around my shape. I can also play around with the opacity if I want it to be a little bit transparent. And if I click away, then I won't see the shape lines, the edges. So I'll go back on this and bump up the opacity a bit. And there you go. That's how you play with the custom shapes.